Today's guest is Dr. William A. Adams. Don't leave out the A. William is an award winning D&I innovator, an engineering trailblazer, and a philanthropist. One of his early accomplishments in his 35-year career was that he helped roll out code globally to many of Microsoft's core products. And after that, he served as the first technical advisor to the CTO, Chief Technical Officer of Microsoft. William has founded and overseen global initiatives that revolutionize how underserved communities access jobs and build careers at Microsoft. He co founded the Microsoft Leap program, which was named as Microsoft's DNI Program of the Year in 2020. William was one of the first Black entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, and through his company Atomation, he developed enterprise apps for Steve Jobs' Next Computers company and pioneered an instant messaging service that the CIA purchased. He currently holds 2 patents. Go ahead, William. Most recently, William founded The Event, which will you'll see in our show notes how to spell that because the second E is a 3. And The Event is a collaborative community-based hackathon designed to solve real-world problems. He is a husband and a father of three, and he builds cabinets and he knits and he tries to do what he can to recapture the exhilaration that he felt when he was riding a motorcycle in India. Welcome to the show, William A. Adams.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jackie. Thank you, Dr. Theo, for having me. I was listening to the bio and I'm just like, dang, I want to meet that guy.
Look, I'm glad that I'm meeting you too. I'm like, you had all the buzzwords that I like. Next computers,
Huh.
Microsoft, messaging services. I feel like we're talking to a real hidden figure right here in our midst. So I'm really
Maybe, I
excited
don't
to have you
know.
today.
I'm old enough.
We claim the rights to the movie. What's today? August. We in August, y'all. We
Yep.
claiming it.
Hidden Williams.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Jackie, Dr. Jackie, we hopping right into things.
Let's hop right into things. I'm really excited you're here, William. We are going to have a great conversation today, and I don't want to waste any time. So let's dive in.
All right, let's go.
So I think what we normally do is really ask about your journey. We talked a little bit about um, in your bio all those key buzzwords, Microsoft and Next Computers and messaging services, and I think that founding companies and having patents, those are all like milestones in someone's career. But we really want to start at the very beginning. Talk about young William
Mm.
and what made him tick. What made you get into technology? I think that story is always interesting, especially with your perspective, because I feel like I know that you're coming from a perspective where folks are really uh, curious about technology, but they were hesitant about technology.
Mm.
So now we're in a time and a space where people can't live without technology.
Yeah.
So talk about that journey, how you got interested in the space in the first place, and what young William really wanted to do.
Yeah. So as you were saying that, I was thinking hesitant about technology. We didn't even have technology. I mean, I'm 57, so I was born in 1964. This is way before the personal computer. I'll tell you, the technology of the day was a desktop calculator, right? Like you had a thing that you could actually, this is like in the early 70s, you had a thing in your hand that you could actually type 1 + 1 = 2, that was technology. My father was a typewriter repairman. And back in those days, it was mechanical. And then later they became electric typewriters. So the earliest things for me were, but even with all that, for some reason, I was a tinkerer. So I was always like building with this little toy called an erector set, which is like little pieces of
Mhm.
metal and screws and nuts, and you could build stuff. So today it would be like Legos or whatever. I was always a tinkerer. Early age, I had like a chemistry set that I saved up my money for, and a physics set, and then slowly I got into like electrical stuff. Um, So early on, when I was a child, I was just a tinkerer, and then eventually, an uncle of mine gave me a personal computer. It's called a Commodore PET, because he was getting something more advanced. He worked for the Navy, and he said, "Here you go," and that was my start. Right, I just started teaching myself programming. I was probably, I think I was 12. So 12 years old. I've got this personal computer, and to put in perspective, it's like before the Apple One came out. So there was a couple of like Atari had one and Commodore had one. So I had a Commodore PET, taught myself programming, and then the personal computer thing just kind of happened, right?
Well, let me pause you there, so because I have questions. So
We're just
you
getting
know,
started. This is just the
we,
intro.
this is just the intro. But I'm like, one, so you get this computer from your uncle.
Yeah.
Are you the only person on your block that has a computer?
Block. How about the city?
There you go. Right.
No, I mean, this is at the time when computers were a mainframe or a mini computer, often some closet in the business somewhere, and you had a terminal. That was the state of computers at that time. When I got my computer, I was certainly the only one on my block in my neighborhood. But then later, people got like, "Oh, my friend got an Atari." He wasn't programming; they were game consoles, right? But then
Mhm.
at school, by the time I got to high school, we had a computer club. So a few of us had computers, and it was like the earliest Radio Shack TRS-80 and the earliest Atari, and my Commodore. I had a Commodore PET by then. So it was
And,
real early, right?
and when you said you taught yourself programming, well, like, what did that look like for those that
For
may not know? Like, what, like, if you're teaching yourself programming
how
now,
how the heck,
right?
right?
So if you're teaching yourself programming now,
Yeah,
you
you go
go
on the
online
internet.
and you take
Yeah,
a little course, right?
yeah,
But
yeah. We
you got
didn't,
the only computer in the city.
yeah.
How do you learn the next steps
Right.
to
There's
that?
there's a couple of magazines. The computer itself, the company Commodore produced a magazine that came out like once a month or something like that, and they would have like little coding examples in there and how to solve various problems. So I'd read that stuff. Um, then eventually there were computer books, and they would have like games in them that you could type up in BASIC and run them. And this is in the days where there's no disk drives, and even now disk drives. What's that even? I
Hmm.
had to load my programs onto a tape cassette, and then run that tape cassette in order to run the program. And if you messed up while you were typing it in, you had to start all over again. So it was just that I had to get books, I had to find resources, I had to look at magazines. There was no online, there was no internet, there was no emailing anybody. None of that existed. So it's just pure like, go find the book or go find a friend or go, you know, just kind of hack around with stuff and see what you can make happen. Right. That's the stage that it was in at that time. Um,
Perfect.
so
So you
that's what I
took
did.
that energy, taught yourself some things,
Yeah.
and then what happened next?
Yeah, well, through my high school, nothing really happened other than tinkering around, learning all this sort of stuff, and then I went off to UC Berkeley.
Oh,
To
go Bears.
Yay, go Bears!
Yay.
Look, y'all already know Cal is the only UC that I really like.
Okay, where are you from? Don't
Hey,
say Stanford. Don't say.
SC,
All right, all right.
SC.
So those Bears are going to have to roll you up. So I went off to Berkeley, studied electrical engineering, computer science. And at that time, again, computer science was like, okay, well, they didn't teach you much other than, hey, there's this new language called C. There's this new operating system called Unix, and it was still punch cards. And you type in your program, they put it on a piece of paper that has holes in it. You submit the job to someone, they run it, and they print out your results on a piece of, long set of paper. And it was the very, very early days. Um, so I did that. But at the same time, in 1984, my brother and I decided we were going to start a company because we were in Silicon Valley, right? Berkeley. And at that time was the birth of, Sun Microsystems was kind of big and they no longer exist. Adobe was getting started, and, it was the heyday of, Apple was burgeoning and faltering and burgeoning again. So it was the heyday. And we said, oh, we're going to get in on this, right? This is our calling. So we put together a business plan. We started our company, Atomation. It was education for application. That was our tagline. We thought we were going to run a computer tutoring center. We didn't end up doing that. I did, in fact, work for someone else who had a computer tutoring center for a while. But in our business, we ended up writing custom software for some people. So that's how it started. We're just in the right place at the right time, and it's like we gotta do computers. Because it was my passion, and my brother was the sales guy, and away we went. So that's really the lead up to, well, how did I really get started commercially into the business? Self-taught, some college, and then just jumping in, right?
Look, Jack, you better jump in here with some questions because I got questions all day.
Go
But
ahead,
you,
Dr. Jackie.
Well, I mean, in terms of your experience with automation, like how did you take that leap from, because it sounds like you did automation first and then you went to Microsoft.
Oh yeah, yeah. Automation was 1984 until I left in 1996.
Okay.
So it was a long time. That was, yeah, way before Microsoft. Um, and then Microsoft came later. But so on the road to Microsoft is when I did this patent work for instant messaging sort of apps and other sorts of things. I tell you, it was just the creative heyday of tech, right? I look back at that young William A. Adams, I'm like, how did you do that? I am not that smart anymore.
so
It was inventive.
I have questions, right? Because it's almost like hindsight is 2020.
Hmm.
Because now, given the state of our country and Black Lives Matter movement
Yeah.
and DEI initiatives, and every company wants to make sure that they have
Hmm.
representation and all these things.
At least
I'm
check boxes.
imagining, I'm imagining William A. Adams like solo in a room trying to pitch new ideas and topics and that through your own company, um and that's something that people are still looking to do today. And
Yeah.
just talk about that experience of standing and creating your own company in this space,
Hmm.
and then using that energy to then affect what you would later do at a larger corporation. Like, because in
Yeah.
my mind, I'm like, there has to be some gems and some tools and some thoughts there that if people are listening and watching, like you need to pick up on
Yeah.
yesterday.
I'll start with two simple words: courage and conviction. That is the root. Because here's what my brother and I faced when we were back in the day. There was no standing up pitching in front of a room trying to get some VC to give you money. They plain flat told us we're not going to give money to people like you, and you can fill in like you with whatever you want.
Hmm.
We did not get VC money, right? That was just the state of things. And it's true today. It's like less than 1 or 3% get Black and women owned companies get VC money. So forget that. You have to have courage and conviction, right? Of course, you have to have some intelligence. You have to have a good idea. And you've got to, in our case, we just went to the market, right? Back then in Silicon Valley, your ideas could win. You had to be connected to people, just like now. Network is important. Courage and conviction is the most important. You have to have some idea, and it's like, I'm convicted that I'm right about whatever it is, right? And you have to have the courage to actually drive it and see it through. And that's when you get to the pitching to other people, still trying to push your idea, even when it's like, but I'm starving, I've got to eat. Yeah, but I believe in my idea, you know. So courage and conviction is absolutely required. It was required then, it's required now, right? That hasn't changed one iota. Um, and then it's just skills. You have to be correct. You have to be right. You have to be the master of your craft, right? I was a programmer. I am a programmer. I mastered my craft. You can't go in acting like a programmer, and you're like the 10th best programmer. It's like, well, if you're not that good of a programmer, you're not going to get very far if what you're pushing is your program. And that's true of any discipline, right? If you're a salesperson, but you're not a very good salesperson, that's not going to go very well for you, right? I mean, you have to be master of your craft, whatever your craft is. And if you're not good at sales, then stop trying to be a salesperson and switch to something that you're really passionate about and really good at, right? That would be, if I had any words of wisdom, it would be that sort of thing. And that's what's been sticky all these years.
Okay. So you are working in automation. You did the instant messaging
Right.
app. You did all of these things, and then you get to Microsoft. So
Yeah.
so let's get to the point where you've arrived at Microsoft, and you're
1998.
okay, 1998, and
Yeah.
you're looking back, like at how everything that you did before that prepared you, because I think one thing that we're able to do when we have the benefit of having a little time, like between like when we started and when we got to where we are, is that we can often figure out
What were the
uh
steps?
like what that thread was, right? Like how we in hindsight we can figure out how did that thing that I did over here actually prepare me for this thing
Yeah.
that felt unrelated at the time. It may
Yeah.
not have felt that way for you because you were just in tech, but I'm just wondering what that was like for you as you look back at how um everything before Microsoft prepared you for Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because some of the things prepared me and some things were just new, and some of them were about personal evolution. The thing that certainly prepared me for Microsoft was having run my own company. I already knew how to lead people. I knew how to create a project. I knew how to ship software, that sort of thing. That was all preparation. What I didn't know and what came new to me was just working in a large group, right? Microsoft was thousands of people, whereas our company was like 12 people. That was different, but leadership is the same no matter what size the group is, right? Um, I mean, I don't know if you say leaders are naturally born or something, but if you've gone through leadership, if you've gone through leadership challenges and you've seen and experienced that, um, you're better prepared for any leadership position, whether it's an entry level lead or the CEO of a company, right? On the way to Microsoft, I knew how to hire people. I knew how to fire people. I knew how to
Mhm.
assess when it's time to move on from a project, to call something a failure and move on, right? So there's all those things that served me well, I think, in Microsoft, because there were preparation in the micro, my micro world, but they did lead to the preparation. And those two words I said, courage and conviction. Certainly in my company, where we were literally starving some days and eating popcorn and chipperoo cookies, because we didn't have any money. Um, that courage and conviction, if you don't have it, you're just going to quit, right?
Yep.
That kind of courage and conviction was required in Microsoft as well, because bigger company, we're not starving, but it's still competitive,
Yep.
right? It's still competitive. You're still the only black guy in the room for 15, 20 years. So it's still competitive. You still are not going to be accepted as a black person. You're
Yeah.
still not going to be accepted. It's not just a pure meritocracy where it's like, oh, we're all the same. Just do
Mhm.
good. It's like, nope. You still need that courage and conviction. So all those things that I was tested on back in animation applied. And then when I got to Microsoft, I learned a whole new set of skills around um, really personal empathy and building teams, and like you referred to before, pitching an
Mhm.
idea and stuff like that. That became more important then. That's stuff that I learned new in Microsoft, right?
So can you talk a little bit about um, the way you build teams when you're thinking about innovation, right? Because
Mm.
when you said that you joined Microsoft in 1998, I'm like, oh, the first thing I thought of was Windows 98. I was like, man,
Mhm.
like that you were either right there right before or in the midst of that whole thing,
Yeah.
and
Beloved Windows 98, huh?
Exactly. Windows 98 lasted for years.
Yeah.
We didn't update that for forever.
Yeah.
I think we went from Windows 98 to Windows 2000 or something like that.
Yep.
Something
Or
ridiculous.
2007 even.
So, but yeah, when you're the tip of the spear as it relates to innovation and things like that, and you're building teams, what were some of the things that you look for in your team members? What are some things that you would say or suggest to our listeners to be on top of their game as they are a part of teams?
Probably maybe I'm hindsighting this a bit, but part of what I really look for these days uh, is their ability to have empathy, their ability to collaborate. And I'm not even talking about tech skills. Um, Empathy, collaboration, their ability to introspect and, make improvements, take feedback, all that sort of stuff. Those
Mhm.
personal factors are super important to me. And when I interview people, I try to suss that out. I tend to these days not do the hardcore tech interview where it's like, now get up on that whiteboard and show me in 15 seconds how to create the most optimal database for something or other. It's like, well, that's not going to tell you much. So I look
Mhm.
for those personal traits, and and when I check for their tech skills, what I check them for is how quickly can they learn. So, for example, if you were coming to interview with me to get on one of my teams, I would ask you, all right, so what's your favorite programming language? And you tell me JavaScript. I say, okay, great. And what's your favorite thing to do? Oh, React frameworks, UI. I say, great. So why don't you? I'm going to teach you like the bare minimum amount of C, and I want to see if you can program me a graphics framework, right? That's what I'm going to ask you. I'm not going to ask you what you're good at because I want to give you a little nugget of education and see if you can apply it, right? And I don't expect you to come out with the perfect answer. I expect you to go through a process like, well, are you going to ask me more? Are you going to walk me through your thought processes of how you would figure this thing out? And
Mhm.
that's what I'm interested in. I could care less if you solve the solution. There's no solution. I just want to see how you think. So if I were giving advice to someone, it'd be, yeah, you can study all the study materials you want and the trick, interview question sites and all that sort of stuff. But really, for my teams, uh, it's important that you have the personal skills because most things are team sports, right? So the interpersonal skills, the collaboration capabilities, all that sort of stuff, problem solving, and then the last part of it is just flexibility of mindset because in a company like Microsoft or many companies, you go through reorganizations all the time, right? Every 6 months we have a reorg. So you want to be the person that's like, great, another opportunity to demonstrate my skills and lend a hand toward being a problem solver. I don't want the person who's like the first time anything changes, they're going, "Where's my cheese?" If you've ever read that book, and it's basically, "Hey, things have changed on me. I'm not comfortable with this. How come it can't go back to the way it was?"
Mhm.
I don't want that person. I want the person that says, "Huh, looks like the dam's broken. Well, let's build some boats so we can float down the river." I want that person, right? So that's what I'm looking for.
So before we move on, if you are listening or watching, I hope you are taking some major notes. If you haven't written down courage and conviction, you should have by now, right? We're going to go ahead and that's number 1. But also, William just told us so many things about if you were trying to get hired, if you were trying to prepare for interviews, if you're trying to be good at your next job or maybe even your current job, right? There's so many skills that he just threw out there that you should be aware of because he hires people, and that is absolutely right. Dr. Theo and I both hire people, and those are the things we look for too. But I think he said it beautifully.
It's so interesting because there's always this debate, soft skills and hard skills, right?
Hmm.
And one thing, all the tech people that we've ever had on this show, you can go back to season one with Dr. Ci, and they
Nisi.
all say that they're willing to teach, right? Companies are willing to teach you, but you have to have these intangibles per se of being flexible, being able to adapt, and being willing to learn.
Yeah.
But what I will say, something that William has said today is be the master of your craft, right?
Yeah.
So be about your business,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because they gonna test you, but also
Yes.
have these skills where you're able to navigate,
Yeah. It's kind of a
working with
trick
others as
question though,
well.
right? Because yes, we say that, oh, soft skills. But when you get into the interview, unless you get someone who's enlightened and saying that, all you get is the hard skill stuff, right?
Hmm.
So it depends on who's doing the hiring. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, depending on who that person is, they'll fall back on, you're not like me. And that's the
Mm.
end of the interview. They don't get to the soft skills. It's just essentially, you can't hang with my hardcore questions. I don't even care about the soft skills. So that's the end of it. Right.
And I think that's a perfect segue into another facet of this conversation is the you're not like me, right? And that's, that somehow determines whether you're qualified to do a position. And
Yeah.
that is one of the things that we are trained for. I've been in higher ed for a while. So it's one of the things that we're trained for in terms of diversity training and how to
Yeah.
hire and manage your implicit biases, right? And we're
Mm-hmm.
trained to actually um, be aware of those and then to correct for them. So it is absolutely not acceptable to hire someone because they're like you, but it happens more often than not.
Yeah. It's the default. It's the easy path, right?
It is
So that's what
seemingly,
happens. It's a
but
seemingly easy path that everyone allows themselves to go
mhm,
down. That's the problem, is we allow ourselves to go down the path. And it takes a Herculean effort to
mhm,
say, no,
yep,
don't go down the easy path.
So I
Right.
mean, to me, like that's also a segue into talking about the lead initiative that you were a part
mhm,
of in spearheading and developing.
Hmm.
Talk about that, because I think that that talks a little bit about the folks that don't look like you, and what were your initial goals
Yeah.
in in helping to create a program like that.
Yeah. So Microsoft Leap is about, I mean, initially, and it's changed somewhat since then. It initially was about what can we do to hire more women and underrepresented minorities? I mean, that was the original charter of it. And I had this task given to me. Well, I asked for it. I said, what's something hard to do? So, and it's pretty hard. Um, but it was essentially that. And I thought, okay, well, initially it was just I kind of approached it like an engineering task. Like, well, how hard could it be? Come on, where are the women? Where are the minorities? Let's just get them and we're done. But oh boy, it turns out that it's actually not a hiring problem. It's a cultural change problem, is what it really turns out to be. And so what we constructed was, all right, first let's solve the pipeline itself. Where do we get people from? Well, right now there's two choices. You get people from college and you get people from industry. College, the path is we go to the top 15 schools, we sign up interns, they get job offers, right? Uh, the the other path is you have 10 years of experience already, and we just try to poach you from somebody else. Those are the two things. There's no path that says you were a barista and you chose to become a tech person. You went to a coding academy or a community college, and now they're going to look at your resume. It's like that path didn't exist at all.
mhm.
We would never look at those people. Why? What about the mom who got a PhD in computer science, stopped to have kids for 7 years, wants to get back in? Nope.
Yep,
You're not college, you're not industry, and you're out of date. So we
yep.
wouldn't into the circular file you go, right? So there was no path. So we're throwing away talent without even looking at it, right? Which is kind of
Mhm.
ridiculous, but that's what we were doing. So we
And
just introduced something to change that, right?
and what year was that?
2015.
I
2015.
love how you have the receipts. When everything happened. I
Oh
love
yeah, I
this.
was there, baby.
Look, look,
Dr.
but
Jackie, I was there.
Yes.
but I mean, but that's important to put
Mhm.
into perspective, right? Right now, again, 2022, just a few years later, right? Folks seem like, oh, look at all the pathways that we're creating,
Back then, they didn't exist.
and
People were
and and,
looking at how we did it, and they're like, "Hey, look, Microsoft's got it going on." It's like that's right, but back in
and,
2015,
and that's important for perspective, because we can lose sight that 2015 was like yesterday,
Yeah,
right?
it seems like
and
it,
and
right?
uh-huh.
But it was the dark ages in terms of diverse hiring in tech. So we didn't
so
have these
so
pathways.
so from those first initial cohorts, uh, like what made you most excited about those first initial cohorts, things
Well,
that you learned and things.
I'll tell you, the first two cohorts, I was not excited because I was doing two jobs. I had a day job and I was
Mhm.
teaching people in the classroom how to do enough engineering so that they could do their internship part of the program. And it was a transformation I went through actually. After like the second cohort, I said to my boss, "I got to do this full time. I can't do two jobs. This is big and important, and I'm going to do this." And lucky for me, I was supported in doing that. They said, "Okay, well, we'll keep paying you like an engineer, and you go do that thing."
Okay.
Um, so that was super important. I actually got support from the execs above me to pursue that path. Um, but it wasn't. It just was not. It was not easy. And the hard challenge here, like I said, was this is a cultural change. Really, what the program ended up being about was teaching the hiring managers how to think differently about talent, right? Because they're so used to go to the college, get the person that looks like me, done. You're not going to be blamed for hiring someone from MIT. But hire this barista, really? And I came up with some catchphrases like, it's not about lowering the bar, it's about casting a wider net, right? So I
Mm.
had to introduce tricks like that. And I had to create a program that was viral. Like, I couldn't possibly hire enough people on my own. It's like, how many, we
Mm.
hire thousands of people a year. How many could I possibly shovel through this program? And this isn't the only way that we hire people. So I thought it has to be viral. You had to hire enough really good people such that 5 to 10 years from now, those people will be hiring people, and they'll be hiring people
Mm.
like them, right? So we essentially you essentially want to create this viral thing, this meme. And now 2022, 7 years later, people are like, oh, the leap program, oh yeah, oh, that's the way. Oh, have you heard? I have people outside of Microsoft from other companies tell me about the leap program. Right? Oh, I've got a friend and they applied to the leap program. Have you heard about that? It's like, yeah, I've heard about it. I know a little something about that. So
Kind of
anyways,
started.
yeah. So I'm proud of that stuff because it's like it was transformative at the time, right? And other companies are now doing the same sort of stuff.
That is, I mean, that
I
those
don't
are
even know if I answered the question. I just wanted to tell that story.
We love stories.
Yeah, we do. Everybody loves stories. So I'm wondering, like, so you started this leap program and you have these cohorts,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Power in
again,
numbers.
the culture is very much hire people like me, right?
Yeah.
And you are trying to change this culture. So how did that, may I don't want to be projecting, but I'm just
Go ahead.
assuming that it is very nerve-wracking when you bring in people from this wider net and you're like, I need you to do well, because if
Yeah.
you don't, I don't know how this program is going to go, and I'm trying to help a lot of people, not just a
Yeah.
few, right?
Well, it actually turned out all right. So the very first cohort was 8 women, and we only hired 2 of them, so 25%. And the execs around me went, "Well, that's good. Let's do it again." So 25%. They were not expecting much. They were thinking, let William do his little hiring thing. If we get 20-30%, we're good because that'll amount to a few check boxes. We're all happy. And then the percentage higher. So we kept going. Then we'd have cohorts of 20, 30, 40. Now they do a mega cohort of like 120 or 150 at a time. But uh, the percentage of hires kept increasing. Now it's more like we end up hiring at least 80%, 90% of them in Microsoft. And the ones that don't get hired at Microsoft get a tech job somewhere. Amazon, Google, Facebook, whatever the heck, right? So it's pretty high. It's literally, if you go through the LEAP program, you're probably getting a job in tech, right? It's that good. But you got to keep in mind, you're at this point, you're now getting the cream of the crop of the alternative, hiring
Right.
pipeline. You open up that website and say, hey, we got a cohort, 150 of you, 2,000 people apply.
Yeah.
Well, cream of the crop. you know,
Yep.
you're going to get 250 of the best people you could possibly imagine.
Yep.
So they do well. And people are like, I want those leapers. Find me some
Mhm.
more leapers. So it's like that. So, it's very competitive. But if you go through the LEAP program, you're getting a job in tech.
I have a question around. So I've heard of the Leap program because I've had a few students
See?
apply to it. Um, but I think one of the questions I have, like in this moment right now, 2022, tech is in a weird space, right? There's lots going on. Folks are always worried about cybersecurity as they should
Yeah.
be. Uh, um, you know, the FAANG companies, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google,
hmm
they're all doing
Amazon.
weird, like, yeah, Amazon, doing up and down things in the stock market, yada 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 yada. So if you are a person in school right now interested in tech, or you're a high school student thinking about going down this journey, like what are some thoughts that you would share with those folks that are just beginning in the space
Yeah.
to really maximize how they move on
How
later?
they direct their energies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had this question a few times, and I think the best advice I can give to anyone thinking of tech is that first realize that tech is everywhere, right? It used to be that you would, well, way back in the day, it's like, well, IBM, um, digital equipment, HP, those were the tech companies. Nowadays, when you talk to people, they wouldn't think of those at all. You said FANG. You didn't say HP, IBM, digitally. You didn't say any of those classic old tech companies. They're no
Mm-hmm.
longer, but they're still tech companies. They're the
Mm-hmm.
OGs of tech. Now it's FANG. But you got to realize that JP Morgan has a huge tech footprint. Agriculture, John Deere has a huge tech footprint. Amazon does robotics in their factories. So tech is in agriculture, finance, legal systems, um, legal Zoom. It's all tech, creating legal documents using AI. It's all tech. So what I tell people is essentially don't try to go for Microsoft. Don't go for FANG. That's not required. What's required is that you find your passion, right? What are you into? Because there's going to be a tech angle. So get passionate about something other than trying to be a basketball player. And even there, it's like, well, sports analysis, so sports analytics is a huge thing.
Mhm.
you know, um, medical, everything's about tech. So find your passion, right? And back to the master your craft thing, get into that. And if you want the big bucks, find the tech angle to that, whatever it is. And then that's going to lead you towards a natural path of education, right? If you want to do sports analytics, you're going to follow a path that leads you towards doing statistical analysis, maybe a math degree, maybe you're going to get into machine learning models and stuff like that. So that's your path into tech, is you wanted to do sports analytics because you're passionate about sports and analyzing performance or something like that. Just sprinkle in some statistical analysis, some this and that, take a couple courses online, and that's your path in. Then you go apply for an internship if you're doing the college route with a sports team, right? Or a medical something, or somebody who's doing analytics around human biometrics and stuff like that. So that's how I would coach people into tech, is to say, follow your passion and find the tech angle to whatever that is, and that's your avenue in. Don't just go out and say, I'm going to learn JavaScript. It's like, oh my God, you will be poking your eye out with a stick within a week. JavaScript for what? It's like, why are you learning JavaScript? Because I want to get a tech job. Like, okay, settle down, but what in what? Figure out your passion, or else you're gonna go down this path, and then you're gonna get all in. It's like, all right, I got my FANG job, and then it's like, I hate this. There's nothing here for me. I'm not motivated by this. How is this gonna help humanity, or whatever your kick is, right?
Yep.
So find your passion, and then find the tech angle to it. And you want a tech angle because that is where the riches are. If you want to have an equity share in the world and not just be a consumer of tech, it does pay to have a job in tech, right?
An equity share in the world.
An equity share based on tech.
I'm gonna write that down.
I'm writing down all kind of stuff.
It's on my website.
Look, Dr. Jackie, you got more questions? Because I got some final closers.
But he's going to close me out. Ask me more questions, Dr. Jackie. Don't let him close us out.
I want to be sure we talk about the event, and I want to make sure I'm saying it right, and I want people to know how to spell it.
Yeah, it's the event, and it's got the funky spelling because that's how you'll find it on the internet, right? So the event is basically, this stems from the past couple of years. The George Floyd incident happened, and I was kind of sitting around going, all right, okay, I see the game. What am I going to do, right? And I'm not a protester on the streets kind of guy. I went through that at Berkeley. That's not my value. My value is I'm a 35-year experienced tech entrepreneur kind of guy. How can I leverage this to up my tribe? Yep. Right? This is the question I posed for myself. And there's two ways. There's a few things I could possibly do. One is like, I got money, I can just start handing it out. Be a mini VC, right? It's like, okay, that'll get you so far, then the money runs out and you're done. What can I do to empower? Because I'm all about empowering. That's what Leap was all about, is empowering people to get up to the next rung so that they can then do intergenerational wealth development. So I thought, well, how about I bring resources to people that don't normally have access to them and help them solve their own problems, okay? And a perfect example of this is if you go to, I'll say the Caribbean because that's where we're talking about doing a particular event. They have a challenge. U.S. Virgin Islands, they're islands. They have challenges with waste management because they're an island, right? They can only do so much. They only have so much money. They can't do the super duper sophisticated stuff that you might find that Las Vegas does and all this sort of stuff. And they don't have the expertise to do those things. So what? What are you going to do? You're just going to sit in your filth and whine and complain? Nah, let's solve this problem. Hey, I know some people out in the world who are experts in waste management, or chemistry or whatever. Why don't we bring those people, and why don't we bring your community people who actually want to do something about this problem? Let's bring them all together, right? Let's have a couple of speeches about waste management challenges and all that, but then let's have a hackathon with these people, right? These experts from around the world. So the event is that. It's bringing people together and helping a community develop the expertise to solve their own problems, and then helping them with resources that they wouldn't normally have access to, right? These experts from various walks of life. That's an event, and the end result of that is that that local community may collectively have come up with a solution to a hard problem, but they own that solution. It's not like they came up
Mhm.
with this and then Monsanto came in and said, now we own the rights
Ugh.
and you're going to pay us for it. It's like, no, 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 no. No.
Or we'll
Equity.
patent it and make sure you can never mind.
Exactly.
Yes.
Let's not talk about grain. Don't
Wait, wait,
get
wait.
mad.
Don't let Berkeley get all fired up now. We gonna be putting
You
this
said
on.
Monsanto. Oh goodness.
Look, we
He
know
said
y'all don't like the
Monsanto.
corporations.
So you want that community to own the patent if there is one. You want them to own the process so that they can then sell it and they benefit from having an equity share in that thing, right? So they solve their own problem. And as they help communities around them like them, they also benefit financially because they have an equity share in that thing, right? So that's what the event is about going after interesting problems in communities, bringing people together and solving the problem and having and leaving behind an equity share in whatever that solution is so that whoever came up with this solution gets to benefit from that, right? That's what it's all about.
I have questions.
All right, I got answers.
Okay. So forgive me, I maybe should know this. Maybe I just need to check if I understand. So hackathon, I think of a bunch of people in a room and the computers, and then
Yeah.
they get into something they're not supposed to be in, and they change it, and
Not
Look,
quite that. Okay.
look. Just know everybody. I'm the one clicking the buttons on the podcast. We don't let Dr. Jackie click no buttons around here.
I got a
None.
mute button. I got a mute button.
I got a mute button for her too. So
I got a mute for your mute.
Right.
so yeah, William, jump in and go ahead and tell the folks.
Okay, so in we mean hack in the most positive way possible. Hack just means trying to come up with a solution to a hard problem, right? Like I might throw a bundle of sticks in front of you and a few strings of pieces of string and rubber bands and say, build a bridge. You're gonna hack a solution. You're gonna go off the beaten path and just like, what would Calvin and Hobbes do? That's hacking, right? That's what it means. And another way I've described this is uh, TED Talks meets Y Combinator. TED Talks are, ideas worth spreading, where the event is ideas worth implementing, right? So
Got it.
there's some experts come and talk about something, but we go further and actually implement it, right? So that's the hacking part of it. And then the
Okay.
Y Combinator is just reference to an accelerator, a business accelerator that applies money, right?
Yep, I've been a part of a couple of different hackathons, and the ones that I've been to, folks come together and they form their teams. Usually, there's like a thought expert, of course, right? Like, hey,
Yeah,
I know a lot about this particular problem, right? Then we might have one or two folks that are interested in that problem.
yeah,
Then we have the person that can actually code or give life to an example. Like
yeah,
so if someone says I want to build an app, you have somebody that can actually put together a skeleton version of that, right?
yeah,
Then you have the business person or the person that's interested in finance that helps to put together the business plan. And sometimes these are like 24-hour
yeah,
hackathons or they're 48 hours. So you do your thing and you come back the next day and you have a whole pitch deck, and the next
yeah.
day you're pitching your idea and all those type of things. So
Now,
there's all different versions of this type of idea, and that's where lots of folks start off. They might have had an idea for months and months or a year or more,
and
and
they
then
get
go to a
together.
hackathon to learn how to pitch it or to practice pitching in order to get some dollars.
Now, the difference here is your typical hackathon, there's like a winner, right?
Oh,
This is not about that. This is about the community winning. So as we're hacking, we're also evaluating, and it goes over multiple days. It's not just 24 hours, it's multiple days. It might be a week long. And the ultimate goal is for the community to come out with a solution that's the best. So you might go a couple days and a couple of teams go, well, that solution's better. Let's put more resources on that. And in the end, the community has a solution. That's what you're trying to get instead of one group walking away with a prize and everyone else getting nothing. It's like, no, we all won because the whole point was to create something for this community, right? And
I
now you've
love
given them
that.
a skill. Hey,
Right.
community, now you know how to collaborate with each other and tackle hard problems. Anytime you need experts, tap the network and we'll have people show up.
Right.
Right? So that's what it is. That's what the event is. And this is fledgling. We're just starting. So, but that's the concept.
We love getting in on the ground floor, so
We do.
um,
Because we will
we'll
follow
go
you and
ahead.
we will give updates.
All right. All right.
We'll go ahead and put that ticker back up so folks can copy that on down for their own resources and all of that. Go ahead and go to the event.com. There you go. You see the spelling right there. Make sure you get that 3 in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then my last question was you said like tequity and I think share equity, and I'm just hoping you can define that for
Oh,
people.
absolutely. This is my thing. So, trying to come up with a single word that described what my kind of mission is. And what I recognize in the world is that to have equity in the world means you have self-determination or some influence, right? When you own nothing, when you're a pure consumer and you just own nothing, you don't really decide what happens in your life. Things are decided for you, right? So having an ownership stake in things, whether it be where you live or what you eat or anything like that, is having an equity share in things. Uh, Tech is a tool, right? Right now, all the multi billionaires, the top billionaires in the world, are all tech guys, right? I looked just yesterday, top 10. I think the top 6 were all guys, right? Um, that tells me that today technology is the primary driver of wealth, and therefore a lot of decision making is based on technology, right? Just like back in the early 1900s, it was the robber barons. So railroads, oil, steel, those guys controlled everything, and their names are on the buildings in New York. Now it's about technology. Having a cell phone is being a consumer of technology. Having stock in Apple is having an equity share in technology. The stock rises, your wealth rises, your family's wealth rises. You get to make decisions based on that. If you don't leverage technology, if you don't either have a job in tech stock, or something related to tech, as that's rising, as that tide is rising, you're not rising, you're drowning, right? So Tequity is about helping people leverage technology to build their equity share in the world and therefore have more self-determination. So I'm focused on helping people get an equity share in the world through technology, right? One way or another. Whew, that's a long
It
way.
was good though. I'm still writing. I'm still
But
writing.
it needed to be said. It needs to
Yeah.
be said, right? And
Yeah, tech plus
I
equity,
think
tequity.
the
Yeah,
all
that's
right,
exactly
you
right.
better put a registered trademark on that. You
Yep.
know,
Do it
Mm-hmm,
fast.
mm-hmm. Yes,
look,
yes. Yeah,
y'all
next
heard
week
it
I'm.
here. Maybe not first, but y'all heard it here.
Next week I'm giving a talk at a conference, and it's all about tequity, and I'm actually going to be doing something that's. I won't tell you what I'm going to do. You'll see after I do
All right.
it.
All right. Yeah, he said don't believe, just watch.
Yeah, don't
I guess
believe, just watch.
that
Mm.
hey, um, I think my final question for you is a little bit of that. What's next? Right, we got a little bit of insight into the event. We've talked a little bit about equity. Um, what does success look like for you next? Right, you've been able to spearhead,
Mm.
these different pathway opportunities for folks. Um, and now you have some of these new ventures. What does success look like for you, and how can we be helpful in that next step journey?
Um, Yeah, as you were talking through, I was thinking, what is success? Well, it's not measured until I'm in the grave, and I got a long way for that. So, I think the next steps is tequity and helping people. This is what I'm trying to um, drive. And this is why I'm doing podcasts, because I want the word to get out, right? It's like I don't want to take my years of tech and just walk off into the sunset and sit on the beach and sip my Mai Tais and call it a day until I die. So
We
success
love
to
a good Mai
me,
Tai though.
yeah, but come on now, sip your Mai Tai, then get back to work. So there's
You're right. You're
I
right.
I feel a responsibility. So success ultimately is fulfilling my role, my part of the story. Like when I was young, the people that I read about were Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and it was all about the civil rights movement and stuff like that. So I look at today and I say, well, this is our civil rights moment. So what are we doing? What shoulders are my children going to stand on? Right? I stood on their shoulders, right? All the people, and even before them, all the slaves, all the way back to Harriet Tubman. I'm standing on their shoulders. So what shoulders am I offering? And I actually said this to someone once, where it's like, well, when you think about it, I asked myself this question: am I willing to get down on my hands and knees so that people can stand on my back to get up to their next level? So success to me is that I am able to sit down on my hands and knees, and I'm so tall when I do that that people are elevated so high that they can reach the next rung, right? Success to me means that I've imparted enough of my 35 years of tech experience and all that, so people go, yeah, thank you for the ladder, and they make it to the next level, because there's going to be more of this climbing is to come. We're not done, right? So that success to me is that I'm able to get down on my hands and knees and have people stand on my back and get to that next level, right? I don't know if that's going to be,
Look,
now in the very short term, it's like, just get the word out, be relevant, right? I mean, yeah, we know you've been at Microsoft for 24 years, but who cares? It's like, you got to tell the story. You got to have the content that people want to consume. You got to be relevant. You got to tweet. You got to twit. You got to, you got to do all the social thingies, or else who cares how much you did? Nobody knows. No one cares, right? So success
I
factors
think
is brand development, right?
I think that's amazing, and I think that that aligns so much with what we're doing here as a part of Stay Motivated and Rise Together Enterprises and the Black Social Capital Podcast, being able to shine a light on stories that are burgeoning, right? Like a lot of people say, like, oh, that was a overnight success, and we're like, no,
It was
we're
10
we're
years in the
standing
making.
on. It was 10 years in the making. It was 35 years of personal
Mhm.
experience that someone is willing to offer as their social capital to make the next thing happen, right? And I
Right.
think that look, I will just say it. If this is not one of our most listened to, most watched episodes uh, of this season, if not of all time, I don't know what we doing, Dr. Jackie. We need to
Well, you're
we
doing a
gonna
good
promote
job. I
and
listened to a couple of them and
and
I was impressed. So you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
well
Yeah.
yeah, I just it's this was dope. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think this episode really did encapsulate so much of why we started this in the first place. Like we just want people to see and hear from like premier, black professionals in different areas. And I
Yeah.
mean, you are beyond premier, right? Tech guru and everything. And you're like legit just looking to give back. And
Yeah.
you just gave up so many gems that I don't think I'd ever even thought of some of those things in that way before myself. I know so many people are gonna love this episode.
Well, that's good. I mean, I try, right? It's like it's very easy to slip into. I think I'm well blessed, and I'm blessed enough that I don't have to try to just shill for my next book or whatever. I can just go sit on a beach. I'm done, but I'm not done. So I'm happy to share as much of my experiences that are relevant to people as possible. I'm grandpa sitting on the porch, like, now, Sonny, let me tell you, you know, it kind of feels like that sometimes, but yeah, I just want to get the story out there and share by my example, and let people take away from it what they will, right?
That's
Right.
amazing. That's amazing. Uh, we got anything else, Dr. Jackie?
No, I think
Well,
that's it.
hold on.
Okay, we're
Yeah,
listening.
go Bears! Hello.
Yes, go Bears
That
all
that's
day.
the final
Uh,
thing.
look, I'm gonna let y'all. I'm gonna let y'all have y'all moment. I'm gonna
Bears
let y'all
include
have
Bruins,
y'all
so you're
moment.
okay. Oh, you're
You will
Listen,
be
Trojan.
all right. We
Yeah,
have
look,
you're
had
Trojan.
so
I,
many
I'm
USC affiliated people on this podcast. You
Yeah,
may exit stage left.
yeah.
It's true.
You'll be
It's true.
okay.
Um, we will be okay. Um, but I think that that's a wrap on this episode.
Yep.
All
I
right.
think we'll see you on the next one. And with that, let's close out the show. Peace.
Yep.
Okay then.
Smash that like button and subscribe. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Remember, the way we build social capital is to build self and build others. We are sure you got some notes on your tablet, computer, or even using a pen and paper. Leave us a review, continue the conversation on social media at Black Social Cap, and share the show with someone you know. Until the next episode, stay motivated, rise together.